Hello and welcome back to Breaking Down Better Call Saul. We're here to talk about episode 12 of season 6 entitled Waterworks. And there may very well be Waterworks in this video and not the salty tear kind, but the perspiration kind. Yeah, we're in a heat wave again in the UK, and I have these two lights on, the fan's off, and I'm already just, it's, you know, it is what it is. The human body sweats. It ain't pretty. Someone's got to do it. I don't know. I'm here. I have to make this video because it is the finale tonight. As the recording of this video, you know, the hours have ticked away. We have reached our moment. The finale. Saul gone, episode 13, the end of not only Better Call Saul, but the end of the Breaking Bad universe. It's been going on for 14 years now. And I'm excited. I'm going to watch it live. I have to be up so early tomorrow, but it's, you know, when's my favorite? Well, what was that? What the fuck was that? I don't know. We'll carry on. How often does the best show I've ever seen end? The answer is once ever. So I'm going to watch it live. And but you know, I've left this until the last minute because the heat wave has been like probably the hottest I've ever experienced since I lived in London, and we lived above a dry cleaners, and it was single glazing as well, so the heat just beamed into the flat, and then the floors were heated from the big, you know, the laundromat machines underneath. Anyway, that was like ungodly. This is pretty close, but today it's cooled off a lot, but certainly hasn't cooled off that much. Anyway, let's just get into it. I'm going to be sweating. You don't need to really know that, but it is what it is. So last week's episode 12, Waterworks. Let's just get into it. The opening teaser, we have Saul Goodman, Breaking Bad era. He's in his office and he's procrastinating. He's drawing something out. And then he sits behind his desk and he's like, all right, send her in. And we see on the desk the papers, the divorce papers. And we're like, oh shit. Well, I'm like watching it, oh shit, it's Kim. Very good teaser. We get the updated intro, which I'm a big fan of, and I'm quite happy of, just as an aside, I'm quite happy with how I've matched that almost perfectly in the intros of the past couple of videos. I was looking for a font that would be reminiscent of the one they used, like the digital one, and the white text on the blue background, and I think I found the exact font that they used on the show because it matched identically pretty much. Anyway, so that's the teaser, and then finally, after 2 episodes without her, and I believe that's the only 2 episodes in the whole show that don't feature Kim Wexler, we come back to Kim. She's in black and white. She's got long brown hair. She's dressed entirely different than we've ever seen her before. She's living in Florida. She has a boyfriend / casual hookup / husband, who knows. And yep. It just paints this tragic, you know, and you know, you could, I mean, you could look at someone's life like that and say, well, if they're content, if they're happy, you know, who cares? But you look at Kim Wexler, this woman who is driven, like one of the most driven characters I've seen in fiction. You know, she's regimented, she's passionate about her work, passionate about helping people, and she is a very decisive and cunning and capable person. And in this episode, we see what she's become since she left Albuquerque, and she is she's not even a yes woman, or you know who just goes along with what anyone wants her to do or asks of her. She's just in the middle. She's whatever, maybe, you know. And we see that in the choices that she makes in that opening kind of sequence in Florida, where you know, she's trying to decide whether to use mayonnaise or substitute. She can't really make the decision, you know. She's not sure. Completely loveless, passionless sex. You know, a few people said, why do they have to show that? And I'm like, well, it's very clearly showing you that, you know, Kim was jumping into bed with Jimmy, and he was saying, they say I'm a friend of the cartel now. And she's like, come in. You know, like it's shown in the show that she has a very active and passionate sex life with Jimmy. And here it's just completely not even functional, because it's not like she's trying to get pregnant. Like, it's just for the guy, you know. She's just letting herself. It's just, yeah, it's, you really feel, and it's interesting because it's also in black and white. It's a similar situation as Jean. It's a colorless life for Kim now, and it's really tragic. And for me at the beginning, it felt like her accent was a bit different, and I was wondering what the fuck was going on there. And then it kind of seemed to vanish a little bit. I don't know if she was putting that on. And then I watched it again with Connie, and I was like, is there an accent? I'm not sure. Am I hearing things? I'm not sure. But it felt like she was trying to disguise herself. But, you know, you see on her desk, Kim Wexler. She's not hiding. She's not in a witness protection scheme. Like, it's... But she clearly is hiding in a way also. She kind of went, you know... I mean, I don't know my geography that well, but she went pretty far away from Albuquerque. You know, I was going to say it was on the other side of the state. It's not quite, but, you know, it's pretty far off. And there's no hint that there's a family tie there or anything. And it's really interesting how they specifically put Jimmy in Nebraska. And then halfway through the whole show, I think in season 3 or 4, we get a flashback with Kim in Nebraska. It kind of makes it seem like those two are going to kind of meet in Nebraska because that's where she's from. But no, they put her in Florida because that's, you know, why give us what we'd expect, right? You know, she's in her office. She works at the Palm Spring Sprinklers, I think. Palm Spring Sprinklers? Spring? I don't know. The Palm Coast Sprinklers, yes. She works at the Palm Coast Sprinklers, and it's just this boring... I had someone pointed out that her job now is basically doing copy. You know, she's put herself in doc review. You know, it's this self-imposed kind of punishment, actually, I would say, of herself for what she did and how responsible she was for Howard's death, in her mind. And, you know, one of her co-workers says, you know, someone's birthday, what ice cream should I get, strawberry or vanilla? And she's like, oh, well, they're both good. I don't know. You know, it's just like, you know, Kim's catchphrase used to be, okay. Now it's, maybe, you know. She's become so meek, and that in itself is heartbreaking to see. And then, as I suspected, what we would see, the reverse of the phone call with Gene from episode 12, Breaking Bad. And we hear him, and it's a weird conversation. He feels very disingenuous. He feels like he's trying. He's like, hey, you know, I'm still alive. They're not gonna catch me, like, or something like that. He feels false, you know, and he's overcompensating, I think. And he says, how long has it been? 6 years. So we learned that the divorce papers scene took place in 2004. As the Gene timeline takes place in 2010. She's like stunned when she hears that Victor is calling him, which is the name that he used when they would run their scams in local bars in Albuquerque. So she knows that it's him, or that it's probably him, and she like closes the blinds and stuff. She's very rattled by this, and very rattled by the phone call. And she says you should turn yourself in, and that's when he gets really mad. And you know, it's a very revealing call in which she says very little, and he just gets more and more worked up to the point where, you know, she decides to hang up, but says, I'm glad that you're alive, you know, and she puts the phone down. And that's when we know that he loses his shit, and he goes off. And it's pretty much exactly what I expected the phone call was, that he got through to Kim. And, you know, some people saying that, you know, he'd heard on the phone that she died and he freaked out. That just didn't ring true to me at all. It didn't feel like that's how he would have reacted to that kind of news. To me, it felt like she'd spoken to him and said, like, you know, you've done some bad shit. I'm not interested, you know, which is kind of what she said in a roundabout way. And that's what the rejection of it, because he heard from Francesca that she asked about him. So there was maybe a bit of false hope in Jimmy's mind that, you know, maybe she still likes me. But I like that she said, I'm glad you're still alive. You know, after everything, like, it's, you know, she extends this tiny little olive leaf, you know, but he freaks out, as we know. And then we see her go to Albuquerque, and it's like, holy shit, what's she doing? And she goes back to the old courthouse, sees someone who looks, you know, not too dissimilar from her, kind of dressing up, you know, one of the clients and for a trial, and, you know, doing their tie, and then she's seeing herself and her past. And then she goes and meets Cheryl, Howard's wife, and gives her the paper, and she reads everything that happened. Kim has come back to Albuquerque to submit the truth in writing of what happened with Howard Hamlin all those years ago, and she's ready to accept the consequences. You know, like, I think in the phone call she says you should turn yourself in, and Gene's like, you should turn yourself in, and that's what she does. She kind of takes that to heart, and says, well, all right, I'll go do that. So off she goes, and she kind of writes down her statement and then goes to Cheryl personally, which you got to respect the stones on someone to do that. And I guess I'll name check him, Darren Locke, who I followed on YouTube for over 10 years now, on and off, and he's been reviewing the show, and he's very much not a fan of these recent episodes, and his critique of this was that, any normal woman would be jumping over the table and, throttling Kim for delivering this piece of information in such a matter-of-fact way that actually your husband was murdered in my apartment, and me and Jimmy actively and purposefully set out to destroy his career and to tarnish his name. And I understand that. I understand that most people would. It would just be, it would turn into a fight. But I think that, you got to take into account that it's very clear they showed us specifically that Cheryl and Howard, I think it's Cheryl, I'm going to feel bad if that name's wrong, but Howard and his wife, their relationship isn't going very well. He reaches out with the nicely done coffee in that episode, and she just kind of, I'm going to take mine to go, and just dumps it in the sink. Like, clearly his relationship is on the rocks. Whether that's because of the stress of the whole Jimmy thing and Chuck thing, I don't know, and the guilt of, Jimmy kind of placing Chuck's death on Howard's shoulders, I don't know, but, and maybe they could have made that a bit more explicit as far as his marriage is concerned, but, obviously it's still rough. She loved the man at some point, and for many years, obviously, but, and it's now 6 years later, and she's probably done her mourning, but it is ripping open these old wounds, and you can tell. I mean, I thought the actress did a tremendous job of showing someone reacting to that kind of news without going batshit crazy. The way that she sits closer to Kim and kind of, she really gives her a talking to, and Kim just takes it all on the chin. It's just like, yep, you can sue me if you want. I'm here, basically. I found it quite moving, really, that after everything, Kim decided to face the music and to accept any consequences that came her way. But also she kind of knew that there probably wasn't much they could do because there's no physical evidence of that. So you could say it's a cop-out in a way, but I also think that regardless of like being willing to be, sentenced legally for committing a crime, I think that just the balls of Kim to go and see Cheryl face to face. I mean, she could have very easily made that statement, gone back to Florida, she'd find out the truth. But no, she went to her house, and I respect that. And a lot of people have been giving Kim shit since Howard's death and saying that she's a complete sociopath. I don't believe that at all. I think she's a damaged person. That much is clear, and she's been misguided, and so is Jimmy. And that's kind of, for me, if Jimmy and Kim are these sociopaths who have no feelings and don't care about anything, but causing mayhem, then the show isn't any good, because then I don't care about them. I care about these characters, and they've done bad things, and they've done wrong things. And that's why I think the show is, for me, superior to Breaking Bad. And people have been bringing that conversation up a lot. I don't want to hop on it about it too much. You can really just use it as one show. It's one continuous story, really. But I think that there's more nuance and humanity and likability to Kim and Jimmy than there was to Walter White. So, yeah, anyway, but... So where's I going to go with this now? Because I'm only like halfway through the episode. I want to kind of get through this quickly so I can get myself ready to sit down and watch the finale. But we end the Kim section, or at least the black and white Kim section, with her on the bus shuttle, the shuttle bus, I should say, at the airport. And it's an amazing piece of acting. They did 2 takes of it, apparently. And Vince Gilligan, who directed this episode and wrote it, the kind of director in him just wanted a second take in the can, even though the first take was great. He said he used the second take, though. They set up a few different cameras so that Ray Seahorn could just act the scene, and it's a silent scene. She's just on the bus, and it all just hits her. The 6 years of guilt and all the feelings that she's been through, that she's clearly been bottling in and trying to suppress, it all kind of explodes in this gradually building moment of emotion. And I thought it was just heartbreaking, and a brilliant performance. And it's that kind of ugly crying, which I think is so hard to pull off in a film. You see it sometimes, and I'll even say, actually, an interesting point, I think anyway, is the behind the scenes documentary of the final season of Breaking Bad, which is fantastic. I really want to watch that again soon. But It shows you the behind the scenes of Skylar, or Anna Gunn filming the scene where Skylar runs out into the street in Ozymandias, the third to last episode of Breaking Bad. Walt's taken Holly, he's driven away, and she runs out into the street. She's seeing her child basically being taken from her, and she falls to her knees and just screams, "No!" And we see the behind the scenes where she's there. They call action, and she falls to her knees, and then she just starts screaming no, and she's crying, and it's really, ooh, it's kind of hard to watch because it doesn't feel right, and you can see it on her face afterwards. She's like, "Ugh," and Ryan Johnson, the director of the episode, goes up and he's kind of comforting her and stuff, and and they show it again, and she screams. But in the episode, the finished episode, she just kind of has this kind of jaw-dropped look of horror and falls to her knees. They don't use the crying. For me, I think that was the right decision because it felt a little... And she's an amazing actress. She does some great stuff in Breaking Bad, but sometimes it's really hard to pull off that kind of gut-wrenching, committing your whole soul. Florence Pugh is the master of that. You go and watch Midsummer. That kind of heaving, kind of just guttural crying. Never done better than in Midsummer, in my opinion. Anyway, but Raytheon just brilliantly builds this moment up, and you almost feel everything playing in her mind as she's trying to like, nope, I'm not going, nope, not here, But it happens, and you get the human touch of just a person next to her just reaching a hand out to kind of reassure her, or kind of say, hey, I'm here, that was actually Vince Gilligan's wife who played that extra, who also appeared in Breaking Bad in the scene where Walter is giving the talk to the high school, I believe, after the plane crash. Anyway, tidbits aside, and I like how they had the kind of the wider shot of her, kind of, then it played out for a long time with just one shot, one take, and then we cut into close-up for a few seconds and really get the impact of this release. Waterworks, right? And then we have the divorce papers scene, which is almost more heartbreaking. We see Kim, she's about to leave Albuquerque, she's going to go to Florida, and Jimmy's there, and he's acting all, Saul is there, he's acting all nonchalant, but we see at the beginning of the episode, he's really like, trying to put it off, but, she comes in, and he's like, yep, he's acting like it's a business deal with just another client, basically, and, he says, so why Florida? And as she's about to answer, he's like, it doesn't matter. He just tramples all over the moment, and you can tell that she wants more out of this. I think that Kim wanted some kind of amicable, kind of, nicer exchange at the end of their, perhaps the last time they'd see each other, for all she knew. And she hands over the papers for him to sign. He gets it all done and, crosses the T's, dots the I's, hands it back over. And he's like, well, have a nice life, Kim. And just gets back to his papers. He's like, just like another thing. And you can see it on her face, like, wow, that's really how this is going to go. I love how she plays it. She stands up, and we don't see her face, but the camera stays there, and you see her hand kind of locked around her bag, I think, and you can see kind of the tension in her knuckles as she's kind of like, and it's that classic Better Call Saul thing where like the character's walking away, then they're like, actually, you know what? And I felt that from just her hands, the way her hand was holding her bag, and then it's like, no, I'm going to leave it, and she leaves. Then we see Emilio, which someone pointed out is probably the longest gap between a Breaking Bad character. He was in the very first episode, now in almost the very last one of Better Call Saul, some 14 years apart. He comes in looking almost exactly the same as he did in 2008. And then she leaves Saul's office. It's raining outside. I like the mood of that, even from the opening teaser, where Saul's there, and it's raining outside. It's moody. We don't really get rain in Albuquerque that much. And Kim goes outside, and we see one Jesse Pinkman, cinematically revealed behind a pillar. Hey yo, we got a light, So he comes over, and Jesse Pinkman and Kim Wexler share a cigarette. I want to give Vince Gilligan all the credit in the world for copying to the fact that the only reason he did this scene and wrote this scene in this episode is pretty much verbatim. I just love him so much. He just loves these characters. He loves Kim Wexler. He loves Jesse Pinkman. He just wanted to see a scene between the two of them. It made sense at this part in the story. It made sense that he recognized her because she defended Combo. Like it all, it's a small world, especially in this one city, but it didn't feel very forced, and I much preferred this to the RV cameo in Breaking Bad, the episode Breaking Bad. Much as I like that, I think Aaron Paul just nailed this so much more than he did in that previous episode where he just felt like a 40-year-old Jesse Pinkman. Now, regardless, this episode, Waterworks, that divorce papers scene at Saul Goodman's offices, that took place in 2004. So Aaron Paul at 42 is playing Jesse Pinkman at like 19, 18 years old, 4 years younger than we've ever seen him in Breaking Bad. And that just doesn't really hold up to too much scrutiny. But, you know, they did it at night. You know, it's raining. He's got a hat on. He did his best. And you just got to go with it. It's a conceit of the way that these shows have kind of panned out chronologically in real time. And I think he did a much better job of affecting that kind of carefree Jesse personality. But that Jesse was still there in season 2 when the RV scene from the previous episode of Better Call Saul took place. So I feel like he got the balance right in this episode, but not quite in the previous one, which is unfortunate. But it's a minor quibble. It's great to see these guys again, but I do think that the previous episode would have been served better without the Walt and Jesse cameo. Keeping the scene where, you know, Saul's in the RV with the hood on, everything gets thrown out to the desert, and, you know, does the line like it was Ignacio you want, you know, and then show the scene of Mike advising Saul to, you know, Heisenberg's an amateur, avoid him, you know, and then the scene of Saul going up to the school anyway. That would have been great. And then Jesse's cameo in Waterworks would have been even more impactful the way it was revealed, and just more fun, I think. So yeah, I think this was a much better Jesse cameo. And of course we know that Bryan Cranston has one more cameo left, so we'll see him in the final episode, and I'm really intrigued to see what that will be. Someone's theorized that it might be him and Saul as they're waiting to be taken off to have their kind of identities changed, and they talk about their wives, and maybe we'll see Saul talking about Kim. That would be great, but I don't know how a Walt cameo is going to really help this final episode, but I'm intrigued to see how anyway. So that was that scene, and I love the way it was shot at the end when she walks off, and Jesse's like, you know, is this Saul Goodman any good? And she's like, when I knew him, he used to be. And some people getting their kind of knickers in a twist about like, oh well, they're just trying to fit everything together. Like they're trying to say that without Kim, Jesse would have never gone to Saul Goodman. That's not the case at all. She hardly gave him a glowing endorsement, you know, and even says in Breaking Bad that my friend Emilio, he got off like 2 times from this guy. That's the reason to go see Saul Goodman, is because he worked well for Emilio, Jesse's partner. It's not because Kim said, well, when I knew him, he was good. You know, it's not really, you know, that's not the reason. They're not trying to make that connection. And as Vince Gilligan said, I just love these characters so much, I wanted to do this, you know, and I love him for that. Sometimes there doesn't need to be a grand reason, you know, and I really like that scene a lot. Following that, we move back to the Gene timeline, and we see him going into the guy with cancer's house and breaking in. Now he's broken and entered, which, you know, well, I'll get to it. So he goes in and he kind of gets all the information he needs from the guy who's passed out. Then he's about to go back out and get into the cab with Jeff, who's there waiting for him. And then he goes back inside and he kind of takes his time and he's looking at stuff and starts stealing a few watches. And some people were saying, like, you know, he just keeps pushing it. Like, why is he stealing stuff for no reason? The reason he's stealing stuff, I think, and that surely that's the intention, is because he's now broken in. Like, he's actually physically broke, because the scam revolved around sticking tape over the door so that they could break in without any detection. Now it's shown that someone has broken in and entered, so he needs to steal a few things to make it seem like a normal robbery and not an identity theft kind of money pilfering scam. That's how I viewed it. Then of course the guy gets up and it's a very tense sequence, and he's got this poor guy's urn with his dog's ashes in it, and he's going to bonk this guy over the head with it. Was he going to try and kill him, knock him out? Who knows? But you certainly start feeling like, what the hell how far is this guy sinking now? Meanwhile, outside, Jeff's there in his car, and a police car pulls up right behind him. I thought this was pure comedy, like he's getting so nervous, and then we cut to the cops, and they're just not even really aware of this guy's existence. Like, can you believe this? You call this a fish taco? You know, I enjoyed the banter between the cops. I know it's a bit like convenient that they just happened to be right outside this house at that time, but it is what it is. It's a story. And then Jeff gets spooked, I think, and drives off, swerves, and crashes into a car. Now, I don't know if Jeff just got, you know, just absolutely spooked and tried to drive off and crashed, or whether he realized that in order for Gene to get out of the house, he needed to cause a diversion. I'm not sure. You know, it's not really clear. But either way, it was a holy shit, what the hell just happened moment. And then Gene goes home, waits for the phone, and me and Connie laugh because Connie does this thing a lot where there'll be something that's going to happen at some point soon, and Connie will be like 3, 2, 1, like that. And most of the time it doesn't happen, but when it does, she's like, you know. And I always laugh at her saying, well, it's going to happen sometimes, like it's just the law of averages, right? So when Jean's there going like that at the phone, I was like, he's pulling a U, and Connie laughed. And then she tried to do it again. She's like 1, 2, 3, and then it rang. But you know, he gets the call from Jeff. I thought it was a funny callback to episode 10 when Jeff first sees Jean at his house with his mother holding court and stuff. And then they go outside, and Jean's like, don't worry, you don't have to call me Dad yet. And here he is on the phone saying, Dad, I'm at the police station. And Jean's like, he's almost like he's like, yeah, it's all fine, son. You know, you don't have anything on you. There was because the guy who had cancer, he woke up and ran out into the street and said someone's stolen something from my house. So Jeff's taken into custody, and Jean's like, we'll get you out, no worries. Calls up Marion, you know, Jeff's mother, and says, we'll fix this, no problem. And she's like, well, you know, he's been in trouble before. And this is where Jean makes his fatal mistake. He says, oh, that was in Albuquerque, the laws are different there, you know. How would Jean know about Albuquerque laws, you know? And that kind of, she's already starting to see, we saw it in the previous episode, she's looking out into and seeing Jean boss around her son. She's putting things together. And he comes over, he's singing along, he's got no cares in the world, he feels like he's going to just ace this whole Jeff in custody thing. Turns up at Marion's house, can't get in, goes around the back, she's listening to something on her laptop, and she acts kind of, closes the laptop. And then we hear the sirens, and he flips open the screen, and it's a Saul Goodman ad. Holy fuck. And we see the shot of the advert, the Saul Goodman advert, reflected in his glasses in color through the black and white. Now, it's a very cool shot. People online were saying, like, it's the greatest shot in the history of television. The first time we ever see color in the Jean timeline. It's like, well, no, they did this trick in the very first episode of the show, where he's sitting there depressed and he turns on the Saul Goodman VHS and we see it reflected in the glasses. This one was a bit more prominent, and it's kind of like the jig is up moment. And it was a great shot, don't get me wrong, but it was a little bit overhyped online. I think it was the best shot of film history. And he's like, well, and I love the moment where he's like, what's this? And he's like, you don't think that's me, do you? Because it's not. The way he jumps so quickly to, you think that's me? You know, that is so, he kind of gives himself away instantly. You know, he's almost too guilty, you know, and or he's trying to hide it too much, you know. It's like, it's, I don't know, like say a thief is in a shop and they leave, and, you know, a police officer walks up to them just to ask them what the time is, and they go, well, I didn't steal anything, if that's what you think I did. Because I didn't do that, you know, like it raises more alarms, you know. Anyway, so that was an interesting choice of dialogue. And then, you know, she, you know, Ash Jeeves told me, she said, I typed in Conman Albuquerque, and then there you came up, big as day. So she had a feeling there was something wrong with him. Like even the line, like, there was no nippy, was there? You know, Carol Burnett is a great actress. I've hardly seen her in anything. But I do like her as an actress in the few things I have seen, and she's really good in this, especially in this final scene. Holy shit. So she's going to call the police. He rips out the phone line. She backs away to the wall, and now he's kind of like wrapping this cord around his hand. And I've watched reactions on YouTube, and everyone is the same. Like, they're like, oh, she found out it's Saul Goodman. But the moment he starts wrapping that cord around his hands, everyone's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, we've never seen Saul, Jimmy, James M. McGill, Slippin' Jimmy, Schemin' Gene, Charlie Hustle, Gene Takovic. We've never seen him do anything like this before. He's never physically harmed someone like that or attempted to kill them. I feel like for him it was a purely an intimidation tactic, but he backs her against the wall, and it's a chilling performance from Bob Odenkirk. He really just turns a different switch for this guy who's really reached the absolute end of his tether. You know, he had this life as Saul Goodman, which was hiding from the crushing reality that his life completely fell apart in those years that we saw in the main timeline of Better Call Saul. Loss of his brother, and how much that kind of, you know, the way it went down and everything, and then the way that his relationship with Kim spiraled out of control, and he got into some deep shit, and then she left him, and then he pushed that all away, pushed it down, and put on the mask of Saul Goodman 24/7. He stopped being Saul Goodman professionally. He became Saul Goodman personally as well, and that kind of destroyed him, I think. And then the only thing that really kept him going was, I think, the power and the money. you know, and kind of living vicariously through just the material side of that life, and not really allowing himself to kind of feel the emotions of his kind of hard past. There is a moment in season 2 of Breaking Bad, I believe, or season 3, where he goes to visit Walt when Walt's first moved out from, you know, he's kind of separated from Skylar. And Jimmy's like, hey, it's fine, you know, I had 3 ex-wives or whatever. He's like, you'll bounce back. And then he just walks out of the apartment complex and sits in his car and just kind of like contemplates and sighs a little bit. And it's almost like he's thinking of Kim, you know. And I wonder what the intention of that scene was when they first created the character. But regardless, you know, he probably does think about Kim. And the fact that he knew where she worked showed us that he's been looking, you know, into what she's doing and stuff. But for the most part, he kind of lives the lie of being this Saul Goodman guy and becoming kind of a monster, you know, a guy who has no problem suggesting killing someone else, or we'll get that taken care of, you know. I'm halfway through watching Breaking Bad again, and the scene when he says to Walter, like, you know, well, if this Jesse kid becomes a problem, we can always get him taken care of. You know, like, it's crazy to see the difference. And I almost think maybe we could have had a little bit more showing how he became that ruthless, you know. But, you know, it's just he's almost this living... He's almost like a method actor now who's gone so far he can't remember who he really was. You know, he's Saul Goodman 24/7, and then he had that taken away from him, and now he's nothing. Now he's just this kind of, in a way, nameless, faceless, just nobody. You know, no kind of joke intended about the recent movie that he made, Bob Odenkirk made, called Nobody, which is a great movie. He's just nothing. He's a shell. You know, he's just a walking shell. And then he got a bit of his mojo back. You know, and he's starting to feel like maybe, you know, maybe he can move past it a little bit. You know, he puts the shirt away in the department store, like, that life is done for me now, it's time to move on. Gonna see if the heat is still there in Albuquerque, and then he finds out that Kim is kind of asked about him, and then he calls her and makes the first move, and then she rejects him. And now everything's coming back again, and now he's just completely lost it. And so when he's in that room with Marion, he's got the phone cord, you think, what is he gonna do? How far is he gonna stoop? And she's got her kind of her lifeline thing, I don't know what you call it, where it's just kind of a panic alarm around her neck, very conveniently placed around her neck, and he's pulling it almost as if he's choking her kind of prematurely. And he's like, don't do that. And she just says, I trusted you, with such, like, how could you do this? You know, how could a person do this? And that's when it gets through to him, and he just lets her ring it. But then, yeah, I mean, the way she delivers that line almost, like, makes me tear up, you know. Yes, there's a criminal standing in my kitchen threatening me, and his name is Saul Goodman. Like, whoa. She delivered that with such oomph, and then he's out of that door like a shot, and the episode is over, and holy shit, where are we going from here, you know? What a great ending. What a great episode. Again, another fantastic... It's just, you know, episode, like, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's just been, like, 1, 2, 3... 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The past 6 episodes have just been killer after killer, like, in different shades as well. Not just all explosive drama, but like subtle kind of heartbreaking stuff, and even fun moments here and there. You know, I gotta laugh and look back at the end of episode 10 when Jane's like, and after all that, a happy ending. But man, I mean, it's, yeah, a great episode, and you know, I never thought Jean would really try and kill Marion, but when she's like, I trusted you, and you think of the elder law that he got into in the first season, and like the way that old people really trusted him, I think that really flashed in front of his eyes, and he realized what he was doing, even just in intimidating an older person. I think that is a line that is, you know, you shouldn't cross, really, even to the things that he's done. I think that a lot of the evil that Saul Goodman has done has been like, he's been an accessory to evil, you know. He doesn't get his hands too dirty himself, but this is something where he's becoming Walter White in a way. You know, he's almost in that mode of like, I think I said this before in a previous video, when he's, you know, we're done when I say we're done. Like, he's becoming that cold, kind of callous, you know, he's lost everything now. Like, all the light out of his life is gone, which, you know, on the nose is why everything's in black and white, and we see that now. But yeah, where do we go from there? I have absolutely no fucking idea. But I'll find out in just about an hour's time, which is incredibly exciting. So, yeah, I'll throw this up. Obviously, no one's going to care about this video because the finale will be out by the time I put this video up. But I wanted to film this before the finale. I didn't want to make this video, this review, you know, after knowing what happens at the end. But I can't wait to see how it all wraps up. I have a distinct feeling it's going to leave me rattled, and I'm not going to be too satisfied. I don't know, I just feel like it's not going to end well. I can't see a redemption for Jimmy. I can see Kim. I feel like it's going to be similar to Breaking Bad. There's going to be a horrible end for Jimmy. Maybe a little bit of redemption before the end, but not a full, Darth Vader face turn. And then Kim will probably kind of, like Jesse, get out with a kind of a note of she'll be all right, And I think that might be where they go. There might be a sad end for Jimmy McGill, but he will maybe do something or say something to Kim that will allow her to move on with her life. And I think that is probably the best we could hope for. I think he's gone too far to come out on the other end. I really hope that he was going to prove his brother wrong and turn himself in and kind of relinquish himself to that thing that his brother cared about the most, which was the law, and respected the most. It was this kind of this proper, I was going to say a sanctuary? No. Is it sanctimonious? No. It's I don't know. I don't know where that sanct something word was rattling around my brain for, but Chuck holds so much value in the law, and but then Chuck was a prick too. So I'm kind of too fixated on Chuck. Like, I really wish we'd have one more scene with Michael McKean, something to kind of tie, because that, to me, that's one of the biggest parts of the story is Chuck. And we've had mention of him. We've even seen a portrait of him in episode 7, but another flashback would have been something to kind of tie it all together. I would much prefer to see a Chuck cameo than a Walter White cameo at this point. I would even have gladly dispensed with the Jesse cameo from last week. I think Chuck is much more germane to Jimmy's story, even though obviously Heisenberg, Jesse Pinkman were a huge part of the Saul Goodman story, but we've seen that, But it is nice to see these little snippets of Breaking Bad and see part of his perspective and reframing how much Saul had to do with Walter kind of being connected with Gus and, Anyway, so it's showing all these little things, but I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Can't wait for the finale, and that's pretty much it. Another fantastic episode, the last episode from Vince Gilligan, who did another great job with directing this episode and writing this episode. I could rattle on and on about this show and these episodes, and it's sad that it's coming to an end. And hey, I didn't dissolve into an actual puddle of sweat. That's actually pretty impressive, but I will leave it there. Thank you for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.